Welcome to Healing Highs with Laura, where we talk about the highlights and serendipitous moments of our healing journeys. I'm your host, Laura, an international energy healer for animals and humans. Thank you for being here. I love sharing these stories with you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited. Today, I am welcoming Mirilena Lee, ceremonial facilitator, educator, and spiritual guide. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited because you were referred by one of our previous guests, and I just want to hear so much about. I was looking through all your stuff, and I just can't wait for everyone to hear all about you and your story. So thank you for being here.
Oh man, you're so very welcome. Thanks for having me on. And I know who referred me. And if you listened to Serena's episode, you obviously had a treat. And if you haven't, you should go listen to it because she's
Yes,
amazing. Mhm.
absolutely, you should.
Yeah.
It was a really fun episode. We had a lot of good moments that even just for me and my own stuff was coming up. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Yeah, so I always start differently with everyone, but there's so much in just talking to you a little bit beforehand that you are able to do for others, but you were telling me how it is things that is part of your own stories. I feel like just jumping right into that and saying, can you tell us what is the synchronistic moments, serendipitous moments that on your healing journey, or kind of bring us to the beginning of that and take us through a little bit? And I feel like that's going to draw us into the rest of the things.
I mean, it's a long story. Basically, I used to be a hot mess of a dumpster fire. And now I'm not. um, and I mean, although my husband might beg to differ sometimes, but mostly I'm pretty solid. But it's hard to go back to a moment where like everything began. Um, and it's just there's so many stops along the way, and I think that's probably the biggest place to start is that it all started with like one tiny step, one tiny seed of doubt, one moment of choosing myself instead of sacrificing myself, one moment of being willing to question my story, and those happened all throughout my life. Some of them happened before I was aware that I was on a spiritual journey. And I realized that today, actually, looking back in retrospect. Before I even knew I was on a spiritual journey, there was a moment where I left my first husband. And it was a moment where I chose to stop sacrificing myself. And I had never thought of it in the context of my healing journey until today when I was telling somebody about that experience. And I was like, whoa, like that moment right there. I didn't even know that that was a part of my spiritual evolution, but it was
Right.
a
Yeah.
moment of saying, you know what, I can't help you. I can't rescue you. I have to go.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Well, I think it's like I said, I always start differently, but I feel like your journey is going to take us on side quests to be able to talk about all the things that you're doing. So, yeah, please share whatever you feel comfortable sharing about how you
Sure.
felt supported by the universe along that whole journey.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, the moment that I can go back and stick a pin in was really, it was such a, I mean, I don't know if kismet is the right word, but like such a happy, miraculous, crazy kind of accident. So I had a nervous break at 24. And I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. I was abused by my grandfather, and that started when I was about 4. It went till I was about 12 or 13. And I shoved that down. I stuffed that down into little black bags and shoved them where nobody could see it and I couldn't see it. And I remembered around age 18, and I continued to self medicate for a really long time. I had kids at 21, continued to self medicate. And when I was about 24, I had a nervous break and I couldn't leave the house I just couldn't stop sobbing for about 3 days. And I tried to go back to work after a long weekend, and my bosses were like, "You are not okay." and they sat me down with a phone book, which is dating myself a little bit, but they sat me down in the office with a phone book and they opened it to the therapist section. And I was super duper overwhelmed. And I closed my eyes and I stuck my finger on the page and I dragged it until it felt like a good place to stop. And I had landed on this place here in Chattanooga, Tennessee called the Another Way Center. And I booked an appointment with my very first teacher, whose name was Lynn Forrest. And she's kind of the OG, like victim consciousness educator. Like she literally wrote the book on it. And I got the distinct honor of being able to work with her one on one for about 6 months before I moved to Colorado. And she planted a seed of doubt in my painful story, in my suffering. And it promptly came with a big FU when she suggested to me that it was up to me to let go of my painful story so I could stop suffering.
Yeah,
And it took years for that to unravel and to unweave into where I am now. But she was the catalyst for everything in a lot of ways. Yeah.
that's amazing. I like how you're describing that seed of doubt the way that you are, because sometimes we could view that as a negative. We hear doubt and it's like
Mm,
a negative thing, right? But
yeah.
actually, the unlearning of so much is maybe starting with doubt, right? Is this really my story?
Mm.
Is this really something I'm going to continue? So I like how you're describing that, putting that um, wording on it.
The my website is questionyourstory.com for a
Yes.
reason because Lynn taught me how to question my story, and that was my mantra for the next 20 plus years before I really started kind of in hyperdrive my healing journey at age 38 when I got sober.
Mhm.
And I had this nervous break at 24. Lynn taught me how to question my story, and she taught me how to plant the seed of doubt. And I mean, I had a healing 2 weeks ago that was really massive, a spiritual healing that was like another layer of the onion, right? Another unfurling of the lotus flower. And there was a level of healing where I realized that, like, all of the times and all of the ways I needed to be right had created suffering for me and suffering for everybody else in my life. I had a white knuckle grip on my painful story, and it was feeding my suffering. And it's crazy to think that, like, at 44, right, I had a deepening of the healing that started when I was 24, when she taught me to question my story. And it just goes to show that healing is, like, not really linear. It's like this spiral and you just keep coming back to stuff. And that seed of doubt is the most important element of healing for me in my entire story. The willingness to question my story, to see it another way, and to let go of my white knuckle grip on needing to be right. That changed everything.
Yeah. What did you notice? Because I'm sure it wasn't immediately, right? Like that was a process to do all
Oh,
of
that,
that.
that was a long process.
Yeah. What did you notice along the way of that was happening for you in your life?
It's interesting because learning how to question my story was one of those things where Lynn taught me how to do it in a way, and her work. So Lynn is really interesting. Lynn was not a therapist. She was doing coaching before coaching existed. Like, she started in the 80s. Her practice was really deeply rooted in A Course in Miracles, which is all about I don't know anything, right? Like I don't need to be right, because what I think I know is probably not the truth. And A Course in Miracles is all about this return to, like, loving ourselves and loving others, and forgiveness, right, of self and others. And so her work was really deeply rooted in that. And she blended that with the work of Byron Katie, which, if you're not familiar with the work of Byron Katie, if you're listening or watching this podcast, the work is so simple and it's so powerful. And it is the foundation of questioning your story. And it's about planting the seed of doubt. And so, one of the things that Lynn taught me, and then I really learned and began to embody over 20 years, because I couldn't really hold on to my healing, right? I wasn't sober until I was 38. And so I would like get some healing and I'd be like, I got, it'd be like sand. It would just kind of like fall between my fingertips. And it was like I was on a merry-go-round of suffering and my painful story. And it was like I would get it and then I would lose it. And I would get it and then I would lose it. And I would get it and then I would lose it. And I just continued to have willingness to see it another way. And that's what Lynn taught me. And it's what I took from what she taught me. She taught me so much more than that, but I couldn't see it all until much later, right? I couldn't really grasp it. And this idea of questioning your story is what I do. I call it the what if game. And it's what Lynn taught me, is that like the part of you that wants to stay alive, because your unconscious mind, right, where your programming lives, your unconscious mind has one most important number one job it does above all else, and that is to protect and preserve the body. We call this the prime directive of the unconscious mind, like, like it's a computer program. And this desire to keep you alive will have you hold on and white knuckle all sorts of painful stories. Like my worth comes from what I do for other people, or I don't matter, or the world is a dangerous place, right? And so we like our stories. We will hold on to them. We will white knuckle grip them no matter what, even if they're causing us a ton of suffering. And what Lynn taught me is that you're going to want to argue with questioning the story.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you're going to go, oh, I don't matter. And then if you question the story, you go, well, what if that's not true? And your ego, your unconscious mind, the part of you that wants to keep you alive and believes that this is the best way to get your needs met and keep you safe, is going to go, well, of course you don't matter. And it's going to argue. And so Lynn taught me to just question the story and leave it there, which is this like planting the seed of doubt. So I always had this like mental vision of it where it's like, well, what if that's not true? And it was like a seed. And I'd just be like, what if that's not true? And I'd throw the seed and let it land and just keep walking. I refused to argue. I would just plant the seed of doubt and question it. And sometimes that was enough. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've ever taken along the way, is that like, even if you can't see it differently today, are you willing to?
That's how I was going to say, like, it's just, are you willing? Just the willingness is enough.
Just the willingness. What if that wasn't true? What would that feel like? What would that mean? How would that change things? And then you don't even have to answer. You can just keep walking, even if you can't see it differently. Yeah. And that willingness in and of itself is the most important tool in your toolbox. Willingness to question yourself, to question the story, to be wrong.
100%.
And for me, it was being willing to be wrong about my unlovability. Yeah. Because as painful as that story is, I white knuckled the hell out of it because I thought it kept me alive. I had to remember how unlovable I was so that I could constantly prove to you how lovable I was, how worthy I was, how worth keeping around I was, so you wouldn't leave me.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a common theme in healing for a lot of people. It can be anyone. I just feel like in just looking at my own clients, like that's a common theme of like proving my worth, proving I'm lovable. Whether there's just like sub things to that too, but it all kind of comes back to that. And I think what you're saying is such a great perspective to approach it, right? Like the willingness, just the not worrying about what the next step is, just asking those questions.
Are you willing to see it another way? And sometimes when I'm really like struggling with it and I want to hold on to my story, because we love to hold on to our stories. We love them. My suffering validates my existence. Don't you know that? Like, how dare you suggest I put that down? And so like, I love to hold on to my story. And sometimes I will just say, whether it's to God, universe, source, whatever name you like to give it, to my higher self, I will just say, hey, I would like to see this another way. I am willing to see this another way. Please help me see this another way. And sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't. in that moment. But what I've found over the years is that the more I practice just being willing, the faster it happens. It used to take me sometimes months or years to be able to let go of a painful story or to let go of a resentment. And now, like recently, I got in a big fight with my husband because we had a misunderstanding and my baggage got lit up. And I was like in my whole, like, you're going to abandon me because I don't have any value and you don't need me. And so, like, I kind of like lost it and I yelled and I was like, I need some space. And I came into my meditation room. I sat down at my altar and I let myself simmer in it for about a minute and a half. And then I said, okay, I'm willing to see this another way. And instantaneously, I was able to see where I was in my painful story. I was able to see the like kind of starting gate position of victim consciousness I was in and the story I was telling myself. And then I realized it wasn't true. I did forgiveness with my husband. And then I walked back in the room and I said, please forgive me. I was in my baggage. And it was over 5 minutes. And that fight 6 or 7 years ago, before I got sober, would have lasted 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And now it's over in 5 minutes because I have the tools to let go of the baggage and it doesn't have that iron grip on me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful place to be in. You know, if you're one of
Absolutely.
those people that spirals and is like stuck there for weeks, it doesn't have to stay that way. It can change. It's
Yeah.
not a lifelong sentence.
That's so true. Yeah, I think everyone can relate to that in any capacity with any relationship. Um,
Mhm.
when you were moving through that journey of the willingness and the letting it go, and what were, I mean, you found such good support. You had such good support. These people in your world teaching you, like you said, like coaching before coaching was a thing. Uh,
Mhm.
what were some moments that you can look back on and say, wow, that was where I really noticed the universe, source, God was there and supporting me and showing
Mm.
me, like showing up for me to,
Yeah.
like we call it serendipitous moments on the
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
Oh, so in the recovery space. So fun fact, everybody, you get to celebrate with me for a second. Today is my 7th anniversary of my horrific, terrible alcoholic bottom. I decided to get sober 7 years ago today. And so in the recovery space, we have a saying, we call those things God shots. And I've had so many God shots along the way. And like there was, gosh, was I sober? I think I was already sober at this point, but I ended up getting sober in 2019. And there's a whole bunch of them. So I'll try to touch on them very shortly and just kind of give you a smattering because it's like a buffet of God shots for me.
Okay, which
I've
is
had a lot
great.
of like universal support, I feel like. Um, but like I got sober in 2019 and I had a lot of these tools, like all the work that Lynn taught me. I had all of that under my belt. So I'm really grateful. Once I decided to get sober and I got sober in 12-step recovery, I'm a huge fan of that program. There are elements of it that are really great. There are aspects of it that can be challenging for people, but all in all, I'm a huge fan of that work. It's deeply spiritual work. So I walked into the rooms. Oh, you know what? That's my first God shot. So when I was 14, I had a best friend. She disappeared for 9 months. I kept calling her and leaving voicemails. Her parents called me one day and said, you're the only friend who's bothered to check on her. She's in rehab. She is a
Oh,
heroin addict and she's hidden it from everybody. Would you like to come up and go to a family session with us? And when she got out of rehab, she was an alcoholic as well. And alcohol, AA was her recovery home. And so she took me. I was already an alcoholic. I started drinking at age 14, 15, and I was like a pass out drunk, binge drinker at age 15. And she was taking me to AA with her. And I, for some reason, loved going to AA with her. I loved it. And you could still smoke in the rooms back then. So I think that was part of it because I'd go and smoke cigarettes and like sit there with all these like salty alcoholics. But at age 38, when I hit my bottom, because of her, I had a positive association with Alcoholics Anonymous and AA. and
Right.
12-step recovery. So it wasn't a shame-filled thing for me. I immediately knew when it was time for me to get sober that on the other end of the 12 steps was freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's my God shot number one.
Yeah.
God shot number two is I was in early sobriety and I watched some talk with Gabrielle Bernstein, and I knew nothing about Kundalini. I knew nothing about breath work. And she did Ego Eradicator, which, if you don't know what that is, it is Kapalabhati or Breath of Fire with this like crazy mudra. It's really intense. I started at 3 minutes and I set myself a 40-day Kriya um, to get to 15 minutes at a time, which if you've ever done that, it's a lot. I don't recommend that. It was really intense. Well, I blew up my whole life within 20 days. Like it created a massive change to me. But what happened on day 3 of that was that I experienced my connection to God, universe, source. Like I had a mainline IV drip of pure unconditional love standing underneath a tree. And I was like, this is better than any drug I have ever done. And I will never drink again. So that was God shot number 2. Um, Probably the biggest God shot is what put me on the path I'm on now with the work that I do. Is I was a massage therapist. I was a hands-on therapeutic, practitioner, and I was really burned out. And I had been told by all of my clients, like, hey, I've done more with you in 1 year of massage therapy than I've done in 10 years of psychotherapy, because I taught them how to question the story in their body. Just, hey, what if you're not broken? Hey, what if you could heal? And then they would see change and they would take that out and they would apply it to the rest of their life. And they'd be like, you should go into coaching. I was like, hell no. I was like, no, nope, no, thank you. And then I got really burned out in 2019. And I decided that I wanted to start finding the off ramp from massage therapy as a career. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to, kind of look into coaching. Well, I had hired a coach in 2017, and it had helped me radically change my life and end a marriage that needed to end for a lot of reasons. He was a wonderful guy. I got no hard feelings with him. He was wonderful. And I ended that marriage, but when I was ready, I went and looked at her bio. I was like, what did she study? What is she certified in? And I found Empowerment Incorporated, which is who I study NLP, or neuro linguistic programming, which is the language of the unconscious mind, for those of you who don't know. And I went to this training because it was only $200 for their intro training. It's crazy because they have a scholarship model. So if anybody's interested in learning NLP, Empowerment Incorporated, I'll make sure I share a discount code with you guys, which makes it half off from 300. So it's like $150. It's crazy. It is a 4-day, 40-hour training that used to be $4,000. And they just made all of their other trainings like a little bit more expensive to make it possible to empower the planet. Like that's their mission. They're crazy, wonderful
That's
people. And so I went to this training. Well, NLP for a lot of people is like sales, rapport, insurance salesmen, real estate agents, car salesmen, they learn NLP, right? Well, I ended up in the woo-wooest of the woo-wooiest NLP school, like in the planet, which is empowerment, because Dr. Matt James is also a kumu of Huna, which is a Hawaiian indigenous wisdom tradition. And so if you've ever heard of the forgiveness process, ho'oponopono, which a lot of people have, that comes from that tradition. And on day 2 of that training, which I had no idea what I had signed up for until I sat down in my chair, I literally signed up for this training, had no idea what NLP was, knew nothing about Huna, bought a $1,500 Airbnb, rented a car, flew to California, and this was February of 2020.
oh,
And my intuition told me, I was like, oh, I'll go in July, I'll go to the beach. And it was like, no, 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 no. You have to go as soon as humanly possible. So I showed up in February of 2020, and I sat down and I was like, what the hell did I get myself into looking at this binder? I was like, oh God. And it like kind of blew my mind on day 1. Well, on day 2, we spent 4 hours talking about Huna, talking about energy, and talking about ho'oponopono, which means to make right both ways. Because forgiveness goes in both directions. We give and we receive. And they talk about who we do forgiveness with, We do forgiveness when somebody has wronged us. We do forgiveness when we have wronged somebody else. And we do forgiveness with people who have died. And the Hawaiians believe that nothing is unforgivable. Well, my sponsor did not believe that. And I was assured that forgiving my childhood abuser was not required for my recovery, and I never had to do it because some things are unforgivable. And on day 2 of this training, we talked about it, and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm doing this with my grandfather. He had died when I was 15, and I was like, no way, no how am I doing it with him? It's unforgivable. And so it's a guided process that we do within this lineage. And we sat down. They took us through the process. They opened with chants and prayers. And there comes a point in the process where you invite the person to come and stand in front of you that you would like to go through the process with. And I didn't know who I was going to invite out, but I knew it wasn't going to be him. And he walked out directly in front of me and stood there and waited. And for some reason, I fully surrendered and I said, okay, I guess we're doing this now. And in less than 10 minutes, I forgave my childhood abuser. And it was complete, it was profound, and it was final. And I wept harder than I've ever wept. And for the next 3 weeks after the world shut down, right? Because I went home and the next week, San Diego was a hot zone. And I wept for the next 3 weeks, not for myself, but for my grandfather, for the suffering he must have endured to become who and what he was, to become the monster that he was. And over the next couple of years, my grandfather became my closest spirit guide. And anytime I'm about to do major healing work, he shows up, he sits with me, he prays with me, he sits in ceremony with me. And it was complete. And when I say complete, I mean complete. And I have nothing but love for him. And I forgave the unforgivable on the first round. And I don't think that was a mistake.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-mm. And that's probably my biggest God shot.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Because I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that. I didn't show up for that. I mean, I did show up for that, but I
Right.
didn't know I was showing up for that.
Yeah.
And people misunderstand forgiveness. I misunderstood forgiveness my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that is really going to help. And I'm sure in your work helps so many people.
Oh,
Um,
it's one of the most powerful things I do that I
because,
facilitate. I don't do it. They do it, but I facilitate.
right. Yeah. And what you're saying is so true. I feel like I'm often explaining forgiveness to people, and similar to what you were saying earlier, like offering an alternative view of it because they have a certain way of looking at it that they think is the right.
Forgiveness is the F word
So true. So
for
true.
most people.
Yeah.
Mm.
And even just like leaning in, like 1% forgiveness feels like climbing the tallest mountain.
Well, there's a deep misunderstanding of forgiveness. So I was raised religious. My dad was a deacon in the Baptist church, right? I mean, we're talking forgiveness is the point. And I was taught that I was supposed to forgive. I was taught that it was Christ-like. I was taught that forgiveness was the greatest ideal, but nobody ever practically gave me a step-by-step process to forgive. And so I walked around drowning in my anger and my resentment and my hurt, and it almost killed me. I overdosed 8 times before my children were born.
Oh,
My rock bottom was doing meth on my back patio on Mother's Day morning when my kids were 1.
yeah.
And that a lot of that was because I didn't know how to let go.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I survived.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people don't.
Mhm.
And radical acceptance and forgiveness, there's this great line. And I think it's attributed to a few different people, but the person I heard it from first was a novelist named Anne Lamott. And the quote is, "Forgiveness is giving up all hope of having had a better past."
Mm.
And so, how I understand forgiveness today, it's not absolution, it's not condoning, it's not, saying it wasn't a problem or it wasn't wrong or, whatever. It is literally just radical acceptance for what happened. And it is radical acceptance for the fact that it can be no other way than how it was.
Yeah.
And there's a process of, I think, understanding the suffering on all sides.
Mm. Yes.
Even the worst offenses, in my understanding and what I've learned over the years, are rooted in a really painful story that drives behavior.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I
And it
agree.
doesn't absolve the behavior. It's not asking them out for coffee.
Exactly. And that's
It's not
often,
inviting them into your living room.
yeah, that's often the um rationalization is that it means that what they did was okay or that they could do it again or
Mhm.
that that changes something in that way.
True forgiveness allows you to remove the charge and to unhook the hook from you.
Yes.
And very often that means that I can now have a boundary without a charge and without guilt and without rage. And I can say, no, thank you. And
Exactly.
I had a friendship that ended last year, and I could see her in her suffering, but in her suffering, she became a viper. And I have a very clear mantra. You are welcome to take this one. I don't mess around with vipers.
Yeah.
I don't care how wounded you are. I don't care how sad your story is. If you're a viper, you're a viper. I don't mess around with vipers because I don't like getting bit.
Yeah.
And, after the third bite, third merry-go-round with this particular friend, she was deep in her suffering, right? So a lot of compassion. I have a lot of compassion for her because I used to be a viper too. I want to be very clear. I used to be a viper too, so no judgment. And after the third bite, I was like, I wish you the most beautiful life. I forgive you and I will not speak to you again. And I blocked her with zero charge.
Right.
No
And
charge.
that's what you want. Like you
Mhm.
said, the boundary. It's not animosity, it's not
Right.
vengeful. It's just this is not our path anymore. I hope
Hmm.
all love comes to you and that
Right.
you're good and I accept this for what it is. But
Hmm.
now I'm placing a different boundary.
Right. Yeah. 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 No, thank you.
Yeah.
And in the Hawaiian tradition, we're like, when you need to have a barrier, have it with aloha. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I wish you well. I'm going to keep walking. Like we're
Yeah.
done, you know? Hmm.
Yeah. I think that's gonna hit a lot of people really deeply when they hear this because it's something we all can use every single day to forgive in so many ways.
Yeah, but I also think it's important to acknowledge this might be really triggering for some people too.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm. It might seem really triggering to imagine that when somebody is violating your boundaries, that you can actually have a boundary with a whisper instead of a roar.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the roar feels vindicated. Like it's like we feel righteous
Yes. And
in
that's
our
often
roar.
the story that's being played out in society, like movies and TV
Mhm.
shows. And so we grab onto the maybe the drama of that and want to
Right. Well, we love the drama. I'm here for the drama. That's why I came.
yeah. Yeah.
And what I've learned is that my peace is more important than the drama.
Mhm.
And the drama comes when I feel powerless and I don't believe that I have the power to walk away. I will use the roar to take my power back. But it's kind of crazy because for me, my power is most often demonstrated in my silence.
Yes, that is
Ugh.
huge for me too. I've had people literally say to me or say to other people, "Oh, the biggest thing is like she stopped engaging with me, and
Mhm.
I don't like, they could feel the removal of my energy, I guess, and the silence
Mhm.
is big impact.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes the most powerful boundaries are the ones that I call them unspoken boundaries because the most powerful boundary is the boundary that I can deliver because boundaries are about what I do. They're not about controlling what other people do. Like this is what I'm going to do if you do this thing. And sometimes the most powerful boundary is the one that you can deliver without needing a response
Mm,
because that is final. I don't need people to respect my boundaries. Oh, that was a good one. I was dating this guy and he made an anti Semitic comment. And I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, that's not going to work. So I let him finish telling his story. And I was like, hey, we need to circle back around to this anti Semitic comment you made. And he rolled his eyes at me. And I was like, hey, I was like, please don't roll your eyes at me. That communicates contempt. And he goes, I didn't roll my eyes at you. And I said, oh, do not gaslight me. I know what I saw. And I was like, so please don't roll your eyes at me. And I was like, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. And he said something, I don't remember what he said, but my response was, my boundaries have nothing to do with your intentions. Because he was like, that wasn't my intention. That's not what I meant. That wasn't my intention. And I was like, ooh, my boundaries have nothing to do with your intentions. My boundaries stand on their own 2 feet. And I don't need anybody to respect them to enforce them without apology.
mm,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Um, I feel like so many questions in my brain, so many ways we could keep talking about different parts of this.
I know there's so many different facets. I'm like, how did we end up on boundaries?
I know. I was like, wow, boundaries. I wasn't even like,
I think forgiveness comes with boundaries.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how I explain it to people. Exactly what you said, the charge and the unhooking. I have a similar way that I explain it. And then I say, and then we put boundaries in place.
Hmm.
And it's a lot of the argument sometimes comes like they want to be loving someone unconditionally. And
Oh, boundaries are the most loving thing you can do.
exactly, for you and for them. And
That's right.
somebody told me a long time ago, and I wish I could remember where I heard it, but that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance.
That's good.
So I always say that in that moment, that no, we're gonna accept and forgive and then put boundaries and decide like what we're gonna how we're gonna protect our peace. And that helps then like get into that. But I think boundaries is such a huge part of, I mean, anything, forgiveness for sure, but anything. I think that's something we forget a lot is like how to know our own boundaries for ourselves and then the ones we want to put in place for others. And I think honoring that with our own integrity.
I think one of the things that I see so often, it's something that I definitely did this as well. And this is the misconception that to have a boundary which would cause somebody else discomfort
Mm,
is unloving. It's not unconditional love.
mhm,
And one of the things that I have really truly come to understand is that if I am rescuing somebody else from their discomfort by not having a boundary, by avoiding saying this doesn't work for me and this is what I need instead, if I rescue somebody else from their discomfort with my truth and my boundary, I am making a victim of them.
yeah,
I am
that's
treating them as if they are incapable of handling their own emotional response
yeah,
and that I'm somehow responsible for it. And I heard this quote a couple years ago and I was like, I feel attacked. And it was when I rescue somebody else from the consequences of their actions, right? When I make a victim of them, and I'm paraphrasing because this is more than the quote said, but when I make a victim of somebody else by rescuing them from the consequences of their actions or their discomfort, I am building my own self esteem by stealing theirs.
mm,
I was like, that one hurt.
that's great because so many people are like oh, I feel like they're draining me. They're taking away my, my spiritual energy, whatever, however they want to
Mm.
describe it. But what you're saying is like, you could be doing that too. You could be setting that up. Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
Oh, there's no such thing as enemy vampires or energy vampires. Please forgive me. I know that's going to piss some people off. I get it. I feel drained around some people too. And there is no such thing as energy vampires. There are, however, energy blood donors. It requires your consent. It requires you to stick your arm out and to let them plug in for your energy to drain to them.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson to learn. I had a teacher many, many years ago. Can I curse on this podcast?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Okay, cool. So I had a teacher many, many years ago. I call her my hot spring sponsor. She got sober 5 years before me and basically kept me from accidentally killing myself for 5 years. She kept me alive. And she just always picked up the phone and listened. Her name is Steph. And if you're listening, Steph, I love you. But she had this saying, because she was a body worker. She was my body work mentor before she was my friend. And she's like, oh, you're an empath? She's like, you're not an empath. She's like, you just have shitty fucking boundaries. And I was like, ew. And I was like, oh, you're right. I was like, oh, it requires my consent. Ew.
Yeah.
Screw you.
That's
Screw you,
yeah.
you're right.
I
But
did
yeah, she,
a podcast last season where I talked about kind of what you're saying, like questioning the empath definition, that it could also be like a heightened state of awareness because you went through a lot of trauma or ups and downs as at some point in maybe your childhood, that it heightened your sensitivity to know when emotions are changing. And
mm-hmm. Well, here's the interesting thing too, right? Like I have all the clairs, like all of like the intuitive gifts, right? Clair sentience is very kinesthetic, and it is this heightened ability to sense through feeling. And I think many empaths also, right? People who have this empathic ability, a lot of times I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I think for a lot of people that is the gift of clairsentience, the ability to feel and sense.
yeah.
And same thing, you need better boundaries.
Yeah. Oh my
You
gosh, you
need,
have.
right? And so I do believe, some of it for me was trauma, and so it was a skill that I had to develop to
Mhm.
survive. And I had to be able to clock when the energy in the room shifted. I had to be able to clock when anger entered the chat so that I could take shelter. And when I got older, I had the ability to have better boundaries around that and to be able to be more discerning. And it was also a skill I had to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a skill.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But
Mhm. It's why I drank, to be honest with you. It was part of it. Because when I
yeah.
got sober, my gifts came back, and they came back hot. And I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, I was like
Yeah.
overwhelmed. I was
Yeah.
like, what is happening right now?
There's a lot of overwhelm in those situations. People that I know that are in recovery or, working on their sobriety, that is something that they describe often, that their abilities are so overwhelming that the self-medicating is really how they cope with it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think,
And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I know a lot of the people that I work with in recovery, they do have intuitive gifts.
mhm,
And often they did not really truly realize them until they got sober and they were no longer shutting it down, because alcohol very specifically dampens. It's like a wet blanket on intuitive gifts. It kind of shuts them down. And it's so funny because when I look back to my childhood, I had a lot of those intuitive gifts, but I wrote it off as make believe. And then I think when I really started to come into my own and they would have developed naturally is when I started drinking really heavily
interesting.
and self medicating. Hmm.
Um, Kind of, because I saw like all the things you do, and we talked about it a little before. how it really weaves in what you've done for yourself and how you help others.
Mhm.
Really would love to hear about how your somatic work, the breakthrough work, how
Yeah.
that came about in your process
Mm.
for you, and then how you're sharing it with others.
Mm. Yeah, it was really organic, interestingly enough. So I had my nervous break at 24. I started working with Lynn. She taught me the basics of A Course in Miracles. She taught me how to question my story. She taught me the work of Byron Katie, although she didn't explain it. She taught it to me, but she didn't tell me what it was. So it wasn't until like 20 years later that I discovered Byron Katie, and I was like, oh. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's everything. And so, I had all those tools when I entered into sobriety. And when I got sober, I worked with the 12 steps. I had an amazing sponsor who was into metaphysics and into energy and into all of these things. And so she really helped me blend things together. And then, when I was about 6 months sober, I went to the training with Kumu Matt James, and I learned NLP. And I paired all of that with everything that Lynn had taught me. And then when I became a master practitioner of NLP, we learned this thing called it's called an empowerment breakthrough session. And it's a 2-day intensive that really deals with your unconscious programming, the painful stories that you have, and it incorporates a lot of energy healing. And later on in training, we learn how to use Huna, which is the Hawaiian indigenous tradition, and we blend all of those things together. And it's like we go in and we find the root causes of our programming and the energetic imprints and wounds. We rip it out at the root so that we can move forward in a new way. And I think one of the reasons that it's such a big part of what I do with people today is because when I walked into my breakthrough session, it was at Master Prac. I was a year and a half sober, and I had already left the husband I was with, who was really abusive. I spent 4 years in a very, very toxic, narcissistically abusive marriage. And it broke me down to the studs. And when I came out of that, it's like I was putting myself back together, and I ended up at master practitioner level training where we learn the breakthrough session. I was a year and a half sober. I had all of these tools that Lynn had taught me, plus all of the stuff I had learned in recovery. And I was still constantly terrified that I was going to go out, I was going to drink, and I was going to set my life on fire. And it was the night before my breakthrough session. And in class that day, Dr. Matt, Kumu Matt James, was like telling this story about one of the trainers they have. And he worked in the recovery space, and he was helping people let go of their identity as an addict and how it was helping them get sober. I lost my shit. Lost my shit. I was like, I can't not identify as an alcoholic. I was like, becoming an alcoholic, like realizing I was an alcoholic, saved my life. It saved my kids' lives. And if I let go of this identity of being an alcoholic, I'm going to go out and I'm going to drink and I'm going to set my life on fire, because if I forget for a second how sick I am, I will go out and I will drink again. And Dr. Matt looked at me and he was pissed. And he's like, ugh. He's like, there needs to be a 13th fucking step. And he's like, and that's that you're not fucking broken anymore. He's like, trust the process. When you let go of the baggage, everything will look different. And so when we do a breakthrough session, there's work that we do in that breakthrough session that helps you let go of the baggage of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame, and the limiting beliefs that are creating your reality, that you're broken or unlovable or that you don't matter. And we release that in one day. And he was like, when the fear is gone, everything will look different. And I went to an AA meeting that night. And I do not represent AA. I'm no longer a part of that program, but it is a part of my journey that I'm really grateful for. So I do talk about 12-step recovery because I think it's a great resource. But it is really important for me to say I'm not a representative for AA. We have to be really clear about that. And I'm not in that program, but it helped me get sober. And if you're listening to this and you need support, it's a really great support. And so, I went to an AA meeting and I cried in front of a room full of 250 people about how people just didn't understand how important it was for me to have this identity. And I woke up the next day and I went through my breakthrough session, and we uncovered a belief that I was unlovable, that to take care of myself first, to put myself first, made me unlovable. And we removed that limiting belief that I was unlovable, and we released all of the emotional baggage of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame. I let go of over 40 years. Well, I wasn't 40 at that point, 38 years worth of anger and rage in 5 minutes. Right? It was so powerful. I fell to the floor and I wept for 10 minutes because the relief was so great when we released anger. Fear was the other one that was really powerful for me. And when we released that fear and we let go of that emotional baggage, I walked out of my breakthrough session and Dr. Matt was right. Everything looked different. I looked at the person standing next to me and I said, "Oh, I'm not an alcoholic anymore." I was like, "I'm sober as fuck. I don't ever want to drink again. I love myself too much to put that poison in my body because it makes me really spiritually sick, but I'm not broken anymore." And I've never looked back. And for me, the breakthrough session was kind of like the catalyst for changing my entire life. I woke up, a day, like a year later, and I was like, "Oh, I don't get angry anymore. Like, I don't get triggered like that." Like, I used to be a throw things at the wall, scream at my partner, punch things. Like, I was really full of rage. And I just realized one day that it was gone. And I was like, whoa. And so breakthrough sessions, they're kind of like taking off your drunk goggles. Our baggage, our limiting beliefs, our painful stories, the emotional baggage. It's like drunk goggles. You can't see where you're going. Everything is confusing. You're probably walking down the wrong hallway. You might go through the wrong door. You're probably tripping over shit, and you definitely should not be driving heavy machinery and making big decisions, like, because you're gonna fuck some shit up. And when you go through a breakthrough session and you get rid of all of that baggage, it's like taking your drunk goggles off, and you can feel that 2,000-pound boulder that you've been dragging behind you that's made it really hard to step forward and do something different. It's just gone. It's just gone. And it's something that we do in 2 days, not 5 years. Because change can happen in an instant when we're working with the unconscious mind and we're working with the energetics of it all. It can happen like that. And for me, it did. And so that work is some of my favorite work to do with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that aren't in recovery or working on sobriety, can they also work with you in that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, this work that we do is the work of emotional sovereignty, radical acceptance, forgiveness, and letting go of the energetic and psychospiritual bonds of the wounds that we have. And that work is applicable for everyone.
Exactly.
It's there
Yeah.
for everyone. It has a really special place in my heart for people in long-term recovery, 6 months to a year and beyond.
Mhm.
Because there's an attitude, and it's not the program. I'll tell you right now, the program says you get to recover.
Mhm.
There's a book in the rooms called the Big Book, and it's kind of like the Bible of 12-step, right? Um, and the very first page of the Big Book says the story of the many tens and thousands of men and women who have recovered from the seemingly hopeless, like, I think it says affliction or disease of alcoholism. It does not say the story of the many of tens and thousands of men and women who are terrified that they're going to go out and ruin their lives and have to remember how sick they are forever and ever. Amen. It's not what it says. It says we get to recover. And so I have a really big soft spot in my heart for people who are ready to put down the story that they have to stay sick to remain well.
Yeah.
because you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And so I have a soft spot in my heart for those people who are on that journey, and I work with I work with everybody.
Yeah.
There are
Good.
certain things I don't work with, but aside from those things that are outside of my scope, right? Like I pretty much anybody.
I love that because
Mm.
I think any kind of working with the subconscious beliefs and finding the root of them, and like you said, the acceptance and forgiveness, all of that can help every single one of us, like doing that. But yeah, also it does make sense that you would, want to help people like that you feel like you are really understand them. You really understand their
Yeah.
journey. Yeah, absolutely. Um, there was something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, in that, because I really understand all of that. But I also saw on just looking through your website that you do a lot of somatic work. Is that part of the breakthrough process? Is that something
It's
different?
kind of a separate thing. They're two doorways. So I have two doorways to my practice. So I do hands-on energy work and craniosacral. Now, craniosacral falls underneath the bodywork umbrella, underneath massage licensure. In some states, it is considered outside of massage therapy. It can be done without a license. In the state that I'm currently in, it does require a license. So I maintain my massage therapy license, but I no longer do that work. So the work that I do with people, craniosacral is non-invasive. You stay fully clothed. And it is a form of energy healing. It does not involve palpation like massage therapy. And it's a lot of long holds, like we're holding the head. We're feeling how the bones are moving. We're listening. There's no forcing, there's no manipulation. It is all invitation and like listening for what the body needs. What I've learned over the years is that craniosacral is a form of energy healing, and it blends very, very well with Reiki. It blends very well with the work within the indigenous energy medicine traditions that I'm trained in, which is out of Hawaii, the Huna, and then I'm also a Mesa Carrier within a Peruvian tradition. And so all of the energy medicine modalities through those lineages blends really beautiful with craniosacral. Now, craniosacral is definitely an energy medicine practice, and the reason I say that is that I can do craniosacral remotely.
Oh, lovely. Oh, I've
So I
never.
have like in my mesa, we have these things called medicine stones or kuyas. And I have one really big one that's like the anchor of my mesa. And I can tuck my fingers underneath it like I'm under somebody's occiput at the base of their skull. And from Colorado to Tennessee, I can feel the movement of their craniosacral pulse from across the country. And I'm like, that's energy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So like I do have this somatic process because the unconscious mind is actually the realm of the autonomic nervous system. It's the realm of your emotions, which are felt in the physical body. They are energy in motion. So I blend that work, but the breakthrough process, the coaching process, we separate that from hands on work for ethical reasons,
Right. No, that
right?
makes sense.
Yeah, so they're kind of two different tracks that people come in on. And when we're working more in the energetic space, that blends very often with the indigenous work, which blends very well with the coaching. When we're working purely somatically, and a lot of times if I'm working with somebody who's got really deep trauma and they just don't feel safe in their body, that we go in underneath the somatic container and we close that container before we move into the other container. And it's really important to do that for ethical reasons. And it's also why it's really important to make sure that you're working with somebody who's had mentorship, who's been taught, who understands, that it's important not to blur those lines too deeply to make sure that it's being handled really responsibly, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it totally does. Makes
Mhm.
perfect sense. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, amazing. I love everything that we talked about today. I feel like I definitely will put like maybe like a trigger warning at the beginning, because I do think, like you said, it could be hard for some people that maybe aren't in the place. So just to give them a heads up. But if you were ready to hear that, I think there's so many things that you said that could help people in different places of their journey. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't talk about that you do want to share?
Mhm.
It's about yourself, or a tool that helps you, or your process with people?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I want people to know that's important for them to know is that they're not alone. They're so loved, probably beyond their wildest dreams, and they absolutely matter.
Yeah.
And that's how I close out a lot of my messages, a lot of my video content that I make or whatever. Like, you are not alone. You are oh so loved, and you absolutely matter. And even if you can't see it another way today, even if you're not ready to forgive, even if you don't even know how you would get there, are you able to just have willingness to see it another way? And that's all you need, is just that willingness. And just remember that you are not terminally unique. You're not broken. You're not some hopeless case. And if you want it, your higher self and your unconscious mind is on your side. It's on your side. It wants you to be free from your suffering. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May you be free from suffering. May all beings be happy and free. And that applies to you. Unconditional love and grace is a gift. It's free. It belongs to everyone, even you and even me. And that's the biggest thing I hope people can come to understand along their path.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Thank you.
mhm,
I feel like that's such a beautiful way for us to end with that message. Thank you.
mhm, mhm,
So transitioning into kind of how we wrap up our space, I like to ask these sort of unserious, cosmic,
mhm,
quick fire questions.
mhm.
Uh, so I always let people know that are watching. I'm pulling out my phone because the questions are on there. uh,
I like the unserious. Like, I always tell people, Source has a sense of humor.
oh my goodness, yes. I used
Why
to
so
say to people
serious?
like, "Oh, this is like when God's like thinks this is funny and wants me to go do this." Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
I like to balance the weight of the discussions that we have with some just kind of everyday things of getting to know you. Um,
Mhm.
and then I also say it's like a lightning round, because the questions sometimes are quick and other times it makes me want to ask more questions, and I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be quick. So it kind of like leaves us like curious and wanting a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, so what animal guide do you feel in your life right now?
Ooh, spider.
Oh, that's so interesting. Earlier today, I was thinking about webs and spiders. Oh, see,
Mhm.
I want to ask questions about it.
Yes.
Okay, and these are kind of hard, so it's okay if you need to think about it. What song would you want us to listen to?
Oh, Forever Grateful by Tony Moss.
I'm sorry, you know Tony Moss?
I may have met the man and
I
had the
I
absolute honor of hearing him sing it live and in person.
yeah, I say Tony. I always tell Tony, my parents and Tony are like, who
Wait, you know Tony?
oh, I know Tony.
You know Tony?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So I sing Forever Grateful at the end of every offering. It is such a huge piece of medicine for me. Huge.
I so funny. When you were how you were ending everything a minute ago, I wanted to bring up a story that has to do with Tony, and I thought, no, no,
Wait, how do you know Tony?
I can't. Tony is a spiritual teacher of mine. That's how I'll
Same
say
way
it.
I know Tony.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was introduced to Tony. I met Tony during the Texas eclipse. I went down and facilitated breath work with my teacher, Michael Bryan Baker. He was one of my teachers at the Texas eclipse, and I got to go to a social gathering with Tony and met
Yes.
him there.
Love, love. Yes. And tech, yes. Yeah, I'm trying to think when at least at least 10 years ago is the first time I met Tony. At least. But yes, I adore the person. Yes.
Yeah,
Amazing,
Tony's amazing.
amazing on all levels.
Yes.
Um, music wise, incredible.
Mind blowing.
All the music.
I lost my mind. He pulled out like this like triple flute thing he was playing, and I was like, what is happening right now?
I know the songs are, yeah, I've had the honor to be in rooms where he's like introducing the songs to us
Mm.
like before he's recorded them or something like, and I'm, yeah, there's
Yeah,
one
Forever Grateful is massive for me. I sing it like almost
best
every
song, yeah,
ceremony I facilitate because I do fire ceremonies and like energy clearings and stuff. And Forever Grateful is almost always sung.
yeah, it's such a great song. I love that song so much.
Hmm.
There's another song he does that I always forget the name of the song, but there's a line in it that he says, "May all the bombs turn into birds and fly away."
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. That's the one that's like really upbeat, right? It's like
it's funny.
yeah, that one also, wow.
Mhm.
But it's so funny because like I'm in sharing circles often, and they're like, just do a couple words, and I'm always like, forever grateful, like every time, and everybody laughs because it's like a joke. They know it's coming. Like,
Like, you know where you're gonna, yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so funny that
what a synchronicity.
when you said it, my brain was like,
Did
yeah,
she just say
I like
that?
this song, but I wasn't thinking of like, I was thinking it was like somebody a musician that I don't know. And I was like, wait, what? Like it's
Yes. Oh, it's the most beautiful song, and everybody should listen to it.
absolutely. I'll attach like a
Link
link.
it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful when he a long time ago before they recorded it, it was like slightly different. It had like this canon aspect where he would sing that part and then we would sing
Mm.
and
Oh.
then he would sing that part and then we would sing it. And it just being in space, it was just so yes. And the version now is also just incredible. So I absolutely will like it. That was weird. My brain was like having a hard time, like, wait, huh? Oh.
Well, it's really funny because when I met him and had the honor of hearing him sing that, I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
I just ended up in that room and I was like so grateful to be there, but and then after the fact, I was like, oh,
He's so good. He's the best. Yeah, I adore him so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, yeah. Okay. See, it's supposed to be quick fire, but that one had to take a minute.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Similarly, what book would you recommend?
Ooh. Okay, so it's two books, and I'm rereading it right now. I'm on book number two. So it is The Great and Secret Show by Clive Barker, and the companion and sequel, Everville. And it's all about the cosm and the microcosm and the dream sea. Highly recommend.
Okay. What was the second one you said?
Everville is the sequel. So the first one is The Great and Secret Show, and it's all about consciousness and reality, and it's like fantastic. It's fantastic. It's my favorite
Amazing.
book.
I'm making a playlist and then a list of the books that everyone says so that I can like post it
Nice,
at the end of the season. So
nice.
writing it down. Okay. Favorite place that you feel is just so magical.
Oh, okay. So I can't name the place.
Okay.
Um, it is a place that I go to sit with my community in prayer and
Mm.
meditation. And it's 250 acres of private land, and there's a pond, and there are so many frogs. And at 2 a.m., when the moon is shining bright and the rain is coming down in the middle of prayer and songs and singing, the frogs sound like they're having a rave. It's like bullfrogs, there are herons, and Like the frogs, there's an outdoor shower, and it's the most beautiful place on earth, and it feels like home.
Love that.
Hmm.
Oh, okay,
Feels like
great.
home.
Favorite ritual for a hard day?
Ooh, favorite ritual for a hard day? Definitely gonna be a hot bath, I think. The moment I sink into a hot bath, I'll put my favorite essential oils in it, but the moment I sink into that bath, it's like it all just melts away and falls off of me. It's like slipping into the womb of just being held and safe and warm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Mm. It's really tough. Favorite ice cream flavor? I'm gonna kind of have to go with Chunky Monkey, Ben and
Okay.
Jerry's, because
Yeah.
I always forget about it. And then we have the Ben and Jerry's in downtown Chattanooga, and every time we go, I get Chunky Monkey and I put it in my mouth and I go, mm. And there are these popsicles that are made out of fruit called Outshine, and they're in the
Yeah.
freezer section, and they have the creamy coconut one.
Yeah, I
Just
have. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, something you're proud of right now.
my marriage.
Oh, I love that. I'm proud.
Yeah, my marriage. Yeah, he's the best thing. He's the best choice I ever made, besides having my kids.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us
Yes.
and all of the wisdoms that you shared. I appreciate you so much. And um, we'll put all your information below
Yes.
that if people want to know more about you or work with you, they can reach out to you.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I always like to end the podcast asking the void a question. So the void
Mm.
is sort of sponsor guide, if you will. Um, and so I'm trying to think what question I want to ask today. Uh, okay. Um, Void, I I know the aliens are here with us. When are we going to know for sure that they're existing and we'll know, everyone will know? Can you tell us like when in time that will be?
Accepting the existence of extraterrestrials is a personal choice that is realized from within and should be treated as such. A global disclosure would only bring as much scrutiny and resentment as there would be acceptance.
All right. I like that. I like that. Okay. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you, your vibes, all your gorgeous background, your gorgeousness. I just appreciate and thank you so much and truly forever grateful for all that
Oh,
you gave us today.
yep. Forever grateful. And also, the Gabinator. Gabinator was love incarnate. So
Wow.
you guys just talk to the Gabinator if you're having a hard day. She's the best.
Perfect. That's
She's
funny. I was
there
going to
anytime.
ask you about that. I was going to say, like, oh, tell us about that painting. And then I thought, that's odd. Like, what a question. Why would I ask that question?
No, that's my dog Gabby, and she was paralyzed for 2.5 months, and I'm pretty sure she activated my energy healing like skills because she came to my office for 2 months straight, and it amplified my ability to feel. And she shows up in healing sessions sometimes. She died, gosh, a year and a half ago,
Oh,
but
gosh.
she was the
Wow.
best.
Adorable picture.
She was the best. Love incarnate. She was a very happy dog.
I'm
Hmm.
so I could bring her in at the end here because animals have a good place here on the
Yes, they
podcast
do.
for me. So yeah, I'm glad that we could kind of bookend our time with her.
Yes, the Gabinator.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate you and everyone listening. I wish you so much joy and serendipity on your healing journey, and I know our paths